So we're really excited to bring this course to fruition, and this will be the first offering of the course. The course format, as I was mentioning, there are 8 live online class sessions that are each 90 minutes. They'll occur on Fridays. And then we have a 2.5-day in-person workshop as part of the complement of what you'll be doing in the course. Both course components are needed. You need to attend for course credit. And the overall time across 9 weeks is 50 to 60 hours that we anticipate, including both sort of in-class time and any prep work you might do for any of the sessions. The course is designed for working professionals, knowing that you are all busy folks who have lots on your plates. So trying to give you the resources you need for the course, but also give you sort of a library of materials that you can access after the course is complete. So we know each week there might be more resources than you're expected to get through. So we'll highlight some that are really key for the session, and then others that you can rely on later. Or if you are really excited about the topic, there'll be other resources to take a look at. We're also trying to design a course that is interactive. So you'll both have some lectures, some activities, meet a number of experts from around the world who are from different sectors, can talk on a number of different topics. And some of those folks you'll see again in the in-person session as well. So it won't be a one meet and done. It is, again, as I mentioned earlier, the course is really designed for those who are currently actively working in the field of coastal climate resilience. We define that a little broadly with the aim for participants to really apply those learnings in real time and shortly thereafter the course. Virtual sessions. So class sessions, like we said, are live via Zoom. So similar to this format on Fridays from 12:30 to 2 p.m. Pacific time. Each week, as we mentioned, it'll be I'm just gonna mute one person that I'm hearing. Oop. Holly, do you mind muting folks who might be off mute? Unless you're asking an active question, we just ask for folks to stay on mute. So you'll have 1.5 hours in class, and then also 1 to 1.5 hours of outside class time, which might be watching videos, reading a short reading material, maybe answering some online discussion questions. The very first week, we'll touch on sort of principles of coastal climate resilience and climate change. We have the director of the Center for Coastal Climate Resilience who will be speaking, and then also the CEO and founder of Pathways Climate Institute, Ms. Chris May, who also helped champion some of the sections of the recent climate reporting that's been happening. So some great folks to get to know. Our second week and third week, we'll touch on nature-based solutions and different dimensions of those pieces. So the first of those 2 weeks, we'll touch on sort of case studies and tools related to that. And the second, we'll continue some of that learning and also focus on sort of policy relevance to nature-based solutions. So what are some of those enabling policies or ways to help support implementation? And then below, you'll see some of the different folks that we have coming to speak or participate in those sessions.
Yeah, and I'm just going to hop in real quick, Sarah, and say these folks that we have coming to speak are really like global leaders in some of these things. It's a really exciting group of folks. Maybe you guys know some of them, but we've really pulled together an outstanding group of guest lecturers for you to both learn from, but also get to know and sort of add into your network through the course.
Perfect. Just expanding my question box to see if I'm missing anything too as we're going. So then week 4, we have 2 folks coming to chat, and we may be expanding this to have a third community rep on and champion come into this conversation around equitable engagement of interested parties. What are some of the different dimensions of this work? How do you do it well? What is often missing? And also some of the different stages or types of engagement from, is it consultation and input? Is it really ground level led with technical assistance from others and sort of helping folks understand the differences. We know that folks in the room will also have experience. And so each class, we have some time for that sharing and networking of that knowledge too. In week 5, we'll start conversations around financing coastal resilience work. And so we have several folks coming to talk about some of the funding opportunities, particularly at the federal level, but we also have some other experts who may speak at different levels too of that funding. In week 6, we'll talk about more innovative insurance and innovative financing for resilient communities. We have Guillermo Franco and Carter Ingram coming, being able to talk about some of these innovations, different ways that folks are thinking about funding innovations in nature-based solutions or making it more feasible to implement some of these projects. Week 7, we'll be talking about data sources, tools, and models for resilient coastal adaptation, which feeds into some of the information you may need for funding and financing different projects, whether that's from conception to implementation to the monitoring and evaluation that may happen after. We are still building that session's experts in the room. So we have the lead for that session is Borja Reguero, who both works with the Coastal Science and Policy Program and also in the Center for Coastal Climate Resilience and has done a lot of this work globally and locally. And then we'll go into a 2.5-day workshop that both will combine some review of past sessions, but also some practical working time where folks will be in groups working on different aspects of a local project that's relevant to you. And this will be held at our coastal campus. We'll include some field trips and other opportunities to engage and some interspersed pieces that'll be a bit fun to bring it to life. I don't know, Megan, if you have any pieces you'd want to add to those past slides before we move to the next section.
No, I mean, I think you covered it well. I think if we have time at the end, we could go through and talk a little more specifically about some of the different guest speakers we have coming, just to give folks a sense
Flavor.
of like the expertise and accomplishments of the folks that'll be teaching the course.
Perfect. It's not the same window. We do have a limited number of fellowships. We also, folks in the Bay Area, there's an additional fellowship opportunity. So some of you may have heard about that. And so we do have a number of limited fellowships available to support tribal members and practitioners and liaisons from underserved communities, or underestimated communities is a new term I've heard recently that I definitely like and would like to bring on. And that funding will help support tuition, possibly travel and lodging costs as well for folks.
And I'll just add in, we are, as Sarah said, particularly excited to offer fellowships to folks from underserved communities, but if like cost is a barrier to participating in the course, like reach out to us and you know, start a conversation with us and we'll see what we can do.
Thanks. Registration. So the course registration is $2,500 for the full complement of 9 weeks. And then travel and lodging are some additional costing. We are looking into booking a block of rooms to bring down price a little bit for lodging for folks. And you can register through the University Extension website. Holly can also drop into the chat. We have a page on our CSP website, Coastal Science and Policy website, that shares links to our syllabus and other components if you have further questions. You can also always reach out to us at csp@ucsc.edu for additional questions. We're happy to chat with folks as you're kind of weighing whether this is the right opportunity for you. And with that, really trying to open it up for questions from the audience. As I said, I will come out of share, but if folks have questions on specific slides, I'm happy to pull that back up and share slides again to answer those kinds of questions. I know that was rapid, so no worries if folks want me to review any pieces too. And don't be shy as well.
Hey, good morning. I've got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead, Kelly.
It looked like on the website, at one point you referenced this as one of several courses for a certificate. If that's the case, can you talk a little bit about the rest of the certificate and when those courses would be available?
Yeah, so this is our first offering. We are hoping to broaden and build out all of the course offerings. We have yet to do so. And so that will be coming online in the coming year to 2 years. And probably beyond, we'll add further courses. But right now, this is our first offering. And so that's the one we have right now. But in future, we will have additional course offerings.
Okay, then a couple follow on. So will you continue to offer this like once a year or regular?
That is the plan.
Okay.
We will evolve. We'll hear from folks in this course. We are a group who likes to modify based on feedback. And so as we hear from folks in the course this fall, we will make modifications moving forward. There may be different folks speaking to different topics. So it might be slightly modified in future iterations.
Okay. And then lastly, how many courses do you think would complete a certificate?
Yeah, so we've been noodling on whether that's sort of an introductory course plus 2 to 3 additional courses, not all in the same length or format. It might be some topically focused as the sort of sub additions,
Mhm.
but that hasn't been perfected at this time.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Oh, no worries. Any other questions?
This is Sarah Richmond. I have a question.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Hi, I was wondering if you could just describe what led to this course. It seems like this is a topic that's covered in conferences, but what motivated bringing sort of it all together under one roof?
Yeah, so we actually partner quite a lot with the city of Santa Cruz and a couple other municipalities and groups. And all of our partners kept saying, we need more skill building, or some of these skills are like hard. We don't all have the skills to do some of the work that we're trying to do. And so that was the initial motivation that we were hearing from partners that folks were actually curious and excited for training like this. We also did hire a consultant to support us in looking at the landscape and seeing what other courses exist. Are they focusing on sort of the practical skills or not? What topics do folks want covered? Who would they like in the room even? And through that work, we heard sort of folks really wanted both a course that they could build their network, so grow who they knew in the field. They wanted a course that was not, say, specific just to only coastal planners, but one that had a complement of people in it. Um, One that covered a variety of topics, sort of those bigger buckets that we have. So implementation of nature-based solutions. How do you fund this work? How do you engage communities and folks effectively and equitably to do this work in a meaningful way? Also, that folks wanted better skills, some of the practical skills of really taking the theory of all of this stuff, but actually applying it to their own work. I actually am a former environmental planner for a US territory that I will say when I got into my job, when we were hit with a tsunami, it really changed my world. And I was way underprepared, and I would have really thirsted for some of this guidance. And I think a lot of folks get into the situation where they are doing this work, they're excited about this work, and then either something goes wrong or there's some pieces missing, or getting the rest of sort of the government group you might be working with on board and moving in the same direction has been challenging. So both a bit of hearing from our partners, knowing a little bit of what it's like to on the ground, sort of was the motivation behind building this kind of course. We also received some seed money from the state to support building workforce capacity in coastal climate resilience. And so this was one of the mechanisms to do that effort.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that that we also have money supporting the course coming from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, because building capacity among the different, both municipal level communities, but also within the risk industry and more state and federal planning agencies is one of the key barriers that they see to trying to get more nature-based solutions in particular into coastal adaptation, but also just, you know, improve our hazard planning more broadly, whether that's green or gray.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Pleasure. Sumto, I'm not sure if I said that correctly, but
Hi, yes, that's correct. This is Somto Uyana, and I have two questions. First is, could you speak a little to the level of technical, like skill and detail that will be involved in the course, especially on the nature-based solutions portion of things? And then secondly, oh, I think I lost my second question. So let's just go with that for now.
no worries. Megan, do you want to take that first?
Yeah, definitely. And Sumto, if you want to tell me more specifically what type of technical expertise you're asking about. But Sarah, I don't know if you want to pull up the slides for the nature-based solution module. So we have two different sessions in that module, and the people who are filling it out are really an impressive group. So let's see. Yeah, we have Janelle Kelman, who is the former mayor of Sausalito, also running for lieutenant governor of the state, founder and CEO of the Center for Sea Rise Solutions, and is like super engaged in the San Francisco Bay Area in efforts around getting municipalities on board and prepared for sea level rise. And nature-based solutions within that. Rod Braun has been working in Florida for over 20 years on nature-based solutions. Specifically, I'm familiar with his work on reefs there, and has worked at Conservation International, at the Nature Conservancy, as well as at state agencies within Florida, really working to put into practice on the ground nature-based solutions in Florida, and then through Conservation International has also worked in South America and other geographies, and is the lead for RISCO, which is the Restoration Insurance Service Company, which is doing really exciting, innovative things to drive mangrove restoration for coastal resilience through insurance. And then Christopher Allen is the head of nature-based solutions at Jacobs, which is one of the largest engineering companies in the world, with I think 60,000 employees or something like that. And so he's basically leading how do we get Jacobs and the groups that Jacobs works with to implement nature-based solutions. So they've worked on the Yolo bypass on the San Francisco coastline, as well as lots of other really exciting, cool projects on the ground. So that's the first session of nature-based solutions. And then the second session, we have Heather Tallis, who used to work with the White House Office of Science, Technology, and Policy, and led efforts at the federal level to try to create a, what did they call it? Like a roadmap for nature-based solutions within federal agencies and driving those within the country more broadly. So she's a global expert in that. Julie Beagle is the head of the environmental planning section for the San Francisco region of U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and California is a planning ground for nature-based solutions here. And then Landolph Rodbarrigos is a professor in Miami who has worked on how to engineer solutions for both reef restoration and mangrove restoration. So just a really exciting group of folks who have like a deep deep skills in nature-based solutions. But Somto, if there was another particular type of technical expertise you're interested in, I'm happy to.
I would say also, I don't think you have to come to the table having skills, having done this already. Part of what we'll walk through is what are some of the options, what are some of the considerations that go into these decisions. So is a nature-based solution the right solution for, and sometimes you'll find that for a variety of reasons, that might not actually be the best solution for a spot that's having trouble or an area, just whether that's wave action or some other combination of factors, or not sufficient space, or there may be other combinations of questions or criteria that you need to think about. So I think you'll walk away from these sessions with a better understanding of what are some of those considerations, which types of nature-based solutions might fit best for different scenarios. And then one of the nice things is this will also lead in when we're talking about financing, it'll help also think about for which stage and type might different funding opportunities fit well. So that's part of why we've done the arc of the course how we have, is sort of you'll see what are some of those options, what are some of those enabling policy dimensions too, what is some of the engagement of communities and others and groups that you need to have in place to be successful, what might hinder that success too, and then go into what are some of the funding dimensions and things to be considering in that funding piece.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Sarah. And the one other thing I'll add to that is that the modeling and data tools section is led by Borja Reguero, who's a professor here at UC Santa Cruz. And he is just the most, I mean, he's incredibly technically expert in these things, which doesn't mean that people in the course need to be technically expert, but if someone has very specific technical questions about how do you model a coastal adaptation project, or how do you model a nature-based solution, because maybe I need those modeling results to apply for a grant, Borja would be the perfect person to ask those kinds of questions, and has worked with the World Bank, among other places, to do that kind of work. So there will also be, with that modeling session, opportunities to dig in a little bit to that, or to just think and talk to people, who do you partner with if you don't have the modeling skills? Like, how do you get that kind of work done if that's not your own expertise?
That's really helpful. Thank you. Yeah, I think you all answered my question on like being able to make decisions about where exactly nature-based solutions could fit depending on the site conditions. Thanks.
Great. Go to Landon and then Charlotte.
Hey, thanks for the information, y'all. This has been really helpful. I was curious, I see a lot of the presenters and the guest speakers are, of course, from California, and then, heavy focus on Florida as well. Systems are very different across the country and the resilience challenges that we're facing. And so I was just curious if you could speak to how you've made this course relevant for all areas of the country, which I know is a big challenge. And so just as somebody based in coastal South Carolina, we don't have mangrove systems, things like that make differences across the country. I was hoping you could maybe speak to the relevance nationally.
Sure. Yeah. I think many of the folks that we're bringing on, although they may be California based, many of them are working across regions, whether Gulf, South Coast, East Coast, etc., and are planning to bring in different examples from that varied work. I don't think it won't all be, say, mangrove habitat or anything like that. And so I do think they'll bring different perspectives that will lend themselves across the US. I don't know if, Megan, you have any other pieces you would add to that relevancy.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. We definitely have like coastal salt marsh is most of what we have here in California. So I think some of the practitioners who have implemented nature-based solutions here, that's what they're familiar with working on. Although there are definitely differences, Atlantic and Pacific, et cetera. So one thing, I'm hoping that the group of participants in the course is going to be a varied group, and that we can also be learning from each other within the group of practitioners who are taking the course. And then some of the other people we have coming in work more at a national scale, like the folks from FEMA and from NOAA and EPA. have sort of this broader knowledge base and are working and thinking across the whole country.
Megan, could you also speak to the in-person workshop and kind of the goals of that for folks to be working on stuff and leave with next steps and you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a good point, Holly. So during the in-person meeting, we're, in addition to, having some field trips to go out and see some things and some talks to continue learning together, are going to be doing a lot of hands-on project work focused around some particular cases that participants bring to the course that they're working on and grappling with right now. So we'll form groups around some of those particular questions, and then drawing on the expertise of the people that we have coming as guest speakers, as well as the whole room, will actually be, making some tangible progress on those. So trying to answer, okay, I'm stuck here, what would be the next steps for that? And so, yeah, like if you had a particular question for a particular place, you could propose that, and that could be one of the projects that we focus on in the in-person.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no worries, Landon. Charlotte.
Yeah, thank you all so much for the great presentation and information. I have a couple of questions. First of all, how large do you envision the group will be taking the course? And kind of related to that, it'd be great to hear a little bit more about kind of the envisioned structure of the 90-minute sessions. And then it sounds like we just got a little more info on the workshop session, so I can picture that a little bit better.
I'm happy to start, or Megan, if you want to go, either way.
Go for it.
Okay. So in terms, and I know you had a couple things written into that. So if I drop one, ask again. In terms of structure for each 90-minute session, each one will be a little different. So some might be more of a panel with some Q&A and then an activity. We are trying to make each session interactive so that it's not just us talking directly at you for 90 minutes or our speakers talking at you for 90 minutes. And so some might be breakout group kind of activities for a portion of the time after some sort of lecture or presentation portion or panel portion. Some may be more a Q&A sort of interaction with the speakers that are there. It's a little varied. Some during the week, we will also pose at various points some interactive questions for folks to be responding to. And so for some weeks, that may be some of the interaction and thought-provoking piece that we're having, or having folks bring it back to their own scenario. So there's a few different ways we'll be doing that piece. Some will be more like, okay, thinking about this scenario, what might be the steps you'd consider? Others might be more Q&A and more question and answer. You had one other question and I feel like I'm missing it. So feel free to say it.
It was just sort of how large will the group be?
How large will the group be? That's right. About 40 is where we're maxing out for this session. So it may be a little smaller for this first offering, but that's sort of the biggest size that it'll be.
Okay, wonderful. And another question.
Yeah.
Just I think thinking about kind of some of the examples and what you were explaining kind of about how the inquiry around nature-based solutions might look. I'm curious about just kind of if you envision that the kind of the topics and the scale of the discussion, do you think it will be relevant or how might it be relevant for people kind of working at the state policy level, things like that? Do you imagine that each of the topics will be able to sort of be rolled up to that, slightly higher level rather than maybe so much at the project implementation scale of a place that needs a nature-based solution and how to explore that? So I'm kind of curious about that relevance.
Megan, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. I do think that it will be relevant to folks thinking at slightly more regional scales. I think, people working at the federal scale, when I've been talking with them and working with them, it's like needing all the different pieces together, like needing people working at a municipal level to be on board and understand and have a sense for what the like shovel-ready projects might be in their region, but then partnering with people working at the state scale, also being really valuable for like making a project happen, and then also at the federal scale. So I really think like having all these different levels together and having people in the room who work at those different levels will be, you know, the best possible outcome that we can have. And there are a number of people who we've been talking to who are interested in the course who are also in a position of, you know, like I work regionally with people at a more municipal scale. And I think that kind of thing is also sort of the ideal kind of candidate that we're thinking about, you know, someone who might train the trainer type of thing. And then in addition to that, we're also, you know, open to and hoping to have some people who maybe work at an engineering firm or somebody who does modeling work for the state or for a federal agency or for an insurance company, to have a really varied group of people so that the network that people are forming through taking the class has people who work sort of in different capacities within this broader space.
And who are also thinking at these different scales. So that's, yeah, as Megan was kind of pointing out, there's different dimensions of each scale. And I think the tools and skill building will be relevant for a variety of scales of work. So whether you're engaging different interested parties, if you're a state operating person, you know, you have to get different departments or groups on board to move anything, honestly. Or if you're thinking about sort of enabling policy, you know, on that session for nature-based solutions, you know, we have folks at the federal to more localized scale in that discussion. And so also will be relevant at that multi-scale. In terms of the funding opportunities, I think that those sessions may be a little more focused towards project specific or region specific work. But thinking about what are those complements that you need in place to do the work well. But there also will be relevance there for folks thinking about, okay, if I want to implement across, say, a state, there's still components, and it'll give you opportunity to know a bit more about what are some of the tools needed, what's some of the data we need to pull together to put a relevant proposal together and be successful with that. So I think it will be relevant regardless of which scale you're operating.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Appreciate it.
No worries. And someone just raised their hand, but it just says iPhone, so I'm not sure of your name, but feel free to come off mute and ask your question.
Hi, yes, thank you so much, Sarah. This is Isabel. Yeah, I just wanted to go and table back to the question from Kelly on the certification. Maybe you could just shortly elaborate a bit more on the process of obtaining a certificate, and the timeline of courses that you need for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so we're still building it out, and it will be probably over a year before we have the full certificate process built out, just because of the timing with sort of UC system and getting that the certification process pulled together. So likely taking one more course of maybe this length or a combination of smaller courses, shorter courses that are more targeted. But we haven't had it fully fledged at this point, but I would say it'll be over a year before we'll have that up and fully running at this point.
Okay, thank you so much. So with this course, then you don't have a full certificate yet, but then you
No,
can
not
build
yet.
throughout
So
time.
right now it'll be what's called a concentration that we're working towards becoming a full-fledged certificate.
Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yeah, no
Great.
worries. Any other questions? We still have a bit of time. Also, if there aren't more questions, we're happy to give folks back a little bit of time to their day, but whether it's a small question or a big question, we're happy to answer. And if later, I used to always say this to some of my consulting clients and folks, if you're like brushing your teeth later, and you're like, gosh, I wish I'd asked this, feel free to reach out to us. I'm going to drop in to the chat again, our email. We are happy to answer questions at any time. We also do, Megan reminded me over chat, you will receive what's called a badge with taking this course. So it is something that you can highlight having completed the course. It can be posted to things like LinkedIn or added elsewhere. And it's within the UC system, our University Extension programming has these different badges. And so you will receive a badge with the completion of this course. So a recognition of completion. We may have like a small, not certification, but little certificate to highlight that you've completed the course as well that we'll share at the end. Any last questions? Go ahead, Megan.
Hi, I have a question for you. I know we've talked a little bit about nature-based solutions and looking at policy and things like that, and kind of funds available and grants and all that. Can you give an idea of approximately, just a percentage breakdown of how much will be focused on more of the project side, engineering, nature-based solutions versus policy?
So we have one session focus more directly on what are some of the types of nature-based solutions in that piece, and then one session more on those enabling condition policy side in terms of, and then again, kind of woven through, I think there'll be dimensions of both of those things. I don't know, Megan, if you would add to that or share something more differently from that.
Yeah, I would say there's going to be a lot of people who are joining us who have worked on like making nature-based solutions happen on the ground. And so I think they've grappled with many of the different elements of that, whether it's like the policy elements that made it possible in their particular location, or that really were a barrier to making it happen that they had to figure out how to work around, or whether it was, how to figure out how to bring the right people together to make it go, or how to like get the expertise to do the modeling, or to figure out like what funding sources were the most appropriate, and then how to like actually implement it on the ground. So like all the different things that go into making a project like that happen, buy-in from all the groups that you need to have buy-in from, et cetera. So I think there will be like a bunch of people throughout the course, not just in the nature-based solutions sections, like in the equity and engagement parts of the course, in the financing course. There are going to be people who have worked on these projects who you could ask specific questions. If you're like most grappling with the policy side of things in your work, then there will be like numerous people you could engage with on that. And if what you're really grappling with is like the modeling part of it, there will be like a number of people who've, tried to tackle that part of it in different kinds of ways. So yeah, in addition to like the particular focuses of each session, there's just going to be a bunch of people who've like worked on and thought about this stuff really deeply that you could ask your questions of.
Yeah, and I would also add during the in-person, we'll be inviting Dr. Tiffany Wise West from the city of Santa Cruz, who is the sustainability lead for the city, and she'll be coming and sharing some of that path that the city has struggled with. And also, she's worked that hyper local specific project level, also thinking more broadly at the region, and She also sits on the Central Coast Climate Collaborative, so is thinking at that sort of regional scale too. So she'll have different dimensions that she's bringing to the table, and we'll do a field trip with her as well to kind of highlight some of those different pieces in real time of where it's playing out, some of the challenges, some of the things that have gone well, and some of this is actually real time efforts that are happening that encompass multiple projects or multiple pieces at that scale, but she can also talk a little bit at different scales too. I hope that answers your question. Also happy to answer more. Maybe we can dive in deeper if we want to have a call after too. Warner, go ahead.
Thank you. Warner Chabot, San Francisco Estuary Institute, we're working to try to line up some scholarships for CBO leaders from the Bay Area to attend. Was this a presentation briefing just now recorded? And if so, there's a way of just making it available to others who are interested but weren't able to join this briefing?
Yes, Holly is recording. So yes, we'll
I'll send a note.
Yeah, we'll send after this session a follow-up this afternoon to everyone who joined and those who registered but maybe weren't able to actually make it. Also asking if you have any additional questions or what maybe challenges you're facing or concerns you have about joining this session. Also, if you are interested and maybe this fall doesn't work with your schedule, we do have an ongoing list for folks where we will contact you and share when we have future offerings. So if that's a boat that you're finding yourself in, know that reach out, let us know. And that way we can also make sure that we're keeping you informed as we move forward with additional offerings too.
Thank you. Just one suggestion. You had something that had one previous document that had the syllabus. The slides that you presented today are a very nice, concise presentation of that. And if those were available in some way, that would also be helpful for sharing with people. You unmute.
Yes, sure. I think we can make that available.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Richard. So I see you have a question. How is this knowledge and curriculum transferable to other states along the West Coast? I think it's transferable both to West Coast states as well as other coastal states around the US. We have a number of speakers speaking at sort of federal to state to other levels. And so particularly with funding, definitely domestic scale. So throughout the US relevancy. Also some of the in terms of sort of which nature-based solutions or some of the considerations, I think those are will provide a framework to utilize in those sessions. And so that framework I think is applicable regardless of the habitat or area you're working in, but will give you some of those dimensions to be thinking about as you're planning or thinking about execution or working towards implementation. Similarly, in terms of engagement, the skills and sort of the frameworks will provide in terms of how to think or skills to use or ways to build in that engagement are applicable across the board. So I do think applicable to multiple states and not just, say, California only. Well, thanks, folks. Are there any last questions before we close out?
I had a question, Sarah. Sorry, I was writing in the chat.
No worries.
I work in the Bay Area, right? So not like on the coast itself, but so would you all have topics or folks that have expertise and specialties in like estuaries itself? Because I know there's lots of them that are tied to like nature-based solutions and specifically like the concerns and issues, multiple issues that frontline communities are facing along a lot of these estuaries?
Yes, and actually even our Gulf Coast folks that we spoke to this morning, those were some of the examples they were talking about were sort of estuary-based examples. And I know also Megan and the team she works with at the Center for Coastal Climate Resilience including Borja, who we've mentioned, who will lead the data section, have worked a lot in the South Bay in the Bay Area. So yes, I think there will be expertise around those types of topics, those kinds of habitat in this session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would say too that we have folks from Sausalito, folks who worked in Richmond, who worked in San Francisco, as well as the South Bay. So in terms of expertise, we're going to be real set when it comes to estuary systems. And also just in California and along the West Coast, a lot of the most promising places for nature-based solutions are within estuaries. So that will be a focus for us for sure.
And I'll also just add to that once we know who has registered and where folks are from, we've built in time to convey that information back to our speakers and work with them to make sure that we have content that's directly applicable to where folks are in the room.
Any last questions? And like I said, don't be shy about reaching out after the fact, or if you're on the fence of like, will this be applicable to me? Please do reach out. We're happy to chat further.
Yeah, I'm just going to add one other thing, which is that if you have someone else that you work with, who does maybe more on the engineering side, or who does more on the sustainability side, or someone who you might collaborate with, I think one of the best ways to use this course would be to come with a couple people who work in the same place, to have a team of people moving things forward afterwards. So if there's somebody in mind who might be a good fit, please forward it along, reach out to them, or reach out to us about it.
Well, thank you again, everyone. So exciting to see so many faces on the call today. We're happy to answer further questions as well. And we hope you join us. I think it's going to be both fun, a good learning opportunity, and an exciting first offering. Well, take care, everybody. Have 5 minutes back to your day.